Okay, so yesterday's video was a little bit of a hot mess kind of a day, and I cried through most of the video. Again, it happens, but apparently with the lunar eclipse that's supposed to be happening tonight, there's a lot of releasing old patterns that don't serve you any longer, right? So I feel like that's kind of a part of like what that was like. Okay, part of what I was frustrated about yesterday was, how this thing that I said I didn't want any part of, the new dog, um, ended up being my parents' way to manipulate me back into following what they wanted for me, right? Because there was the conversation back in probably July. No, it was before July. May or June, maybe. Where they were wanting to talk about getting a dog, and did I think Taz would be better with a younger puppy or with a slightly older puppy, like a year or two. And I said, no, I don't want another dog, right? So then there was this whole frustration bit because I feel sorry for the dog because she's basically been adopted by people that are too lazy to give a shit about her well-being. That like they don't even care about their own well-being, let alone this animal that they just adopted. So it's falling on me to take care of her and to help her get acclimated to the environment and to the pack dynamics and all that stuff, right? So me and my dogs get to take her with us on our walks and all this fun stuff because they're not going to do anything like that. In fact, the several times that I have said we need to leave the leash on the dog for a while, my dad will actively go out of his way to take her off of the leash. It's like you tell him not to do something, and that's the exact thing that he's going to do as soon as he gets to it. So it's like, again, not a new thing. This is something that was in existence before the strokes. It's just now there's less trying to mask it, I guess. Like he's just going to blatantly do it and then, oh, I forgot. It's bullshit. But anyway, the frustration came in with when I took the dogs out the night before last and ended up leaving her on a leash and was working with her on like the dog door, and when they went and laid down in their room for a while, I took her that way so she would get the sense of, since that's where she sleeps, she can get the the forward motion, the momentum to go that space, get in that direction when that's where she wants to go, right? So she's getting a little bit better with that kind of stuff, but still, if anybody looks at her or anything, she like runs the other direction, and then it's like really difficult to catch her and to get her where she wants to go. So I've been working on that, right? So night before last, when I said that I was trying to work on that and moved her into their room, my father immediately started in with the bullshit of, oh, well, you're a pretty good dog wrangler, which basically is my pat on the back for falling in line and doing what I didn't want to do because I like animals better than I like people. So I don't feel it's fair for the dog who just moved into this environment to be punished because the human situation sucks. But it sucks. So right, like that was a big source of frustration yesterday. It's like, I'm pushing back on it a little bit. Like, I'm still going to work with the dog because it's still not her fault, right? However, when my mom couldn't get her to go into their room as she was getting ready to go to bed last night, and I went and caught the dog and took her back there, or chased her back there, rather, is basically she went one way around the laundry room, I went the other way, then I went back and forth a couple times, and then she, like, bolted in that direction of the bedroom. So as she's shuffling into the bedroom, my mom sticks her head out the door to say thanks. And I say, you're going to be in trouble when I move out. What are you going to do then? And she said, I don't know. A little bit ago. they were getting ready to go over to my grandma's house. Because apparently they're having dinner over there tonight. There was a thing that I was notified of as I was leaving to walk the dogs. Oh, I forgot to mention. It's like, yeah, I'm not going. I'm just not interested in hanging out with the family any more than I absolutely have to, right? So I didn't go. However, she asked if I could help take some stuff out to the car. So like their little desserty things and some odds and ends that she was taking over. And she handed me these two things and then went to hand my dad something, and he like starts doing this number like he's going to fall over just having touched this thing. It's like, just fucking give it to me. Right? So I like took it, so I have my hands full on both sides, and then he's basically just standing in the way. It's like, yeah. Anyway, get it out there, load it in the car, go back in. She wants me to take the vegetable soup out there too. So I go out and I grab this box on the process, to put the soup in, so it's not hot soup on the car seat. And she says something about, I don't know what we'd do without you. It's like, well, you better figure it out, because one of these days I'm not going to be here. So then she starts in on this, trying to fish for information, and do you have any kind of plans? It's like, oh, there's nothing set up as of yet. I said, but it's not far off. And, so she calls me back out there when she's, or when I'm getting ready to go in the house, and says, well, I'm really happy to know that you're working on moving on and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, right. It's like, shit's gonna crumble, and you, like, don't know the full extent of how much shit is going to crumble. So, yeah. Anyway, I haven't told that part to my brother yet. Forgot to mention that conversation. Randomly, okay, I went into the kitchen and I was charging my phone for a little bit. And my mom came back in because she realized she forgot her brace for her apparently still broken wrist or whatever. And I just took a picture of it because it was just like, I was just going to send it to her and be like, so, what the hell? There is this half jug of tea that several days in a row I've seen it just sitting on the counter. And this time around, it was over on the end table by the couch. It's like, interesting place for that. But I've noticed it's not going back to the refrigerator at all, so of course I pointed it out to her, and she's like, and she's like, well, hand it to me. It's like, yeah, because I don't know when the last time that thing was refrigerated. It's like every time I've looked at it, it's been walking around the kitchen, but not going anywhere near where it should for, for safety purposes and, being able to drink something without it being moldy or whatever else. I'm sure tea's got a mold, right? Yeah, anyway. That makes me think when I was, with my ex and at my former in-laws' house, their daughter, who was like 10 years younger than my ex was, she was freaking out because she found a glass of lemonade underneath her bed and was freaking out about how it had black stuff in it. It's like, dude, lemonade will mold. She's like, what? Really? Ew. It's like, yeah. If you want to just leave it out there, all that sugar and stuff, yeah, it'll go. So anyway, I'm in a much better mood today. I like this. So yesterday I did go to the baby shower, and my dad also went, so that was weird. But whatever, he spent time with his one sister that he spends most time with, the one that, her husband died back in February last year. So honestly, he's probably just trying to suck the life out of her too. So since her husband's not there to do it now. But it's like, I really didn't talk to very many people. And my one aunt was there with her granddaughter, who I believe is autistic, and living with her, I don't know what the deal is with the granddaughter and the daughter, but I know the granddaughter does stay with my aunt a lot. I think she lives there, to be honest. Yeah, and the only thing with that was, at one point her granddaughter was looking at me and asked if I was related to my parents. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. Here we are. So, then I don't know if she was going to try to go any further. I mean, I was bright and colorful as per the norm. Had my shirt and my pants kind of coordinated and all colorful like I like to do. And now that it's leggings weather again, that I can do a little bit more. But yeah, like that was the first thing that when I got out of the car and the second in line of the sisters, there's 2 sisters. She was there. She just got there with her granddaughter, her granddaughter's wife, and baby, and one of her other daughters had just gotten there, and like she parked over on the one side of us, and then the aunt and the granddaughter and her group were over on the other side, and kind of like converged in the middle because we parked in this handicap slot going straight up to the place, and that was the first thing that they commented on, was how colorful I was. It's like, yeah, that's how I roll. Anyway, so we go to this thing, right? And it's fine. I took my headphones. I didn't really talk to anybody. Had my hair down because, I washed it before we went, after my skate and all that fun stuff. And at first I turned my music off when I got there just because there was so much confusion going on. But then once, things kind of settled, they did their little lame baby shower games and whatnot, got those out of the way, the food and all the stuff, and, people were talking. And then while my cousin was opening baby gifts, I went back to the music. And, actually, I also kind of popped in Instagram a little bit as well, and saw a new post. And it was playing the music again, and it was just it's like just the energy of his posts now, or it's just like there were a few times like back in the summer when he would post something and it was like there was just like this big massive discomfort in my system, like it's like, I'm not ready to be around this energy kind of a thing. And, now it's like, ooh, this is kind of calming and soothing, and I like this. So I feel like that's kind of more of an alignment thing on that end. But anyway, he posts something, and I happened to see one of the comments where somebody's like, oh, I could watch this all day or whatever. It's like, okay. And of course, I've seen those comments on there before, which is why I generally don't look at the comments that he posts, because of course, this gorgeous single human in a field where he has a spotlight, and of course there's all the girls that are just like and like that whole thing. And that was something that back when I first got the insight as to who he was to me, and I had that sense of, he's out of my league, what the fuck, no way. That was kind of when I had to like stop. It was partly when I got off social media for a while. It's like, I cannot mess with social media at all. It's going to fuck with my head. And there was one thing, there was this one girl that was, she posted something, or commented something of, how'd she say? Oh, you're so handsome and so charming, and I just don't know if you're more handsome or more charming, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, ew. It's like, that's just uncomfortable to read. Like, here I am, pick me, I'm so desperate. And it's like, not a fan, right? So I had to like wander away from like social media altogether. It's like, if I'm trying to get in a better headspace where I'm like not seeing myself as somehow less than this person that, you know, that I was vaguely aware of, and yes, he's very attractive, and you know, that's part of where that out of my league idea came in at, because, you know, I remember being in high school, and this sounds ridiculous because it is ridiculous. I remember being in high school and feeling bad because I wanted to be attracted to somebody that I would end up with. I thought that somehow made me shallow. What that did was make me, you know, waste time on people that, you know, I wouldn't have otherwise wasted time on, because, you know, I automatically know that there's, I mean, sure, you can have, you know, connections where that develops over time. Yes, been there, done that, that's fine, but it's like, if you are just actively not attracted to somebody from the get-go, I mean, that might just mean they're not your person, right? But it's like this whole world, like you're conditioned to think that you have to basically dull yourself, right? Dull your own shine, and, you know, be less to make other people comfortable. But all that does is give people who should have no access to your energy, access to your energy. And I've talked about those stories. That doesn't go well, right? So, yeah. You know, I mentioned most recently, you know, the dude from undergrad, the house pastor's son, that when I walked in, because I was getting the tour of the house, and then, you know, I go into this room, and then there he is, and he's just like, hey, you know, and he just kicks into, like, showing off and being, like, trying to be cute and all this stuff. It's like, dude. You know, but because I was told you're supposed to be nice to people, and you're supposed to, you know, I mean, essentially, I don't even know. It's like somebody who would not have gotten my attention one way or another got access to me because of my conditioning. It's like, you know, and then because of that, when I finally got him pushed back enough to, you know, to feel safe enough to be in my own energy again, then there's this situation where one of his extremely toxic friends kind of latches on to my energy, and right, so it's like just the ways that people who should not have had access to my energy ended up with access to my energy to suck the life out of me, right? And okay, so I've talked about the guy that, you know, when I was out with my friends at the club because we wanted to go dancing and have a couple of drinks, right? So a whole big group of us went out. And, I mean, there were like 10 of us. So we had this group of people, you know, and we were dancing and all the things. Okay, there's a couple parts of this, and hopefully, okay, one part actually connected to the story, other part connected to the guy that I don't think I've talked about. Okay, the story at the bar, right? So we're in this place. We've been dancing, we've been drinking, not like a huge amount or anything. Like we were gonna be fine. It was a group of 10 of us, and you know, we were all real close to the house that we were staying in and all that stuff. But at one point, I decided to go sit down and drink some water. Where, you know, we had like these 3 tables where we had stuff, and I was over there by myself. And for whatever reason, I had one of my roommates like put like little braids in my hair or whatever. It was just something else to do, you know. Now I'm into the bright colors and everything. Back then I wouldn't have felt like I could have done the bright colors. However, I was going like, you know, I was more inclined to dye my hair like the redder tones and whatnot. So but they were still kind of natural looking. They weren't the bright, fun things. But for whatever reason, I had one of my roommates put little braids in it, and it was fine. Until this guy comes over, and it's like, oh no. It's like I can just tell this is not a conversation I'm getting ready to enjoy or really want any part of. And, you know, he comes over and says, I just wanted to say that of all the girls I've ever seen with their hair braided like that, you are by far the most beautiful. And it's just like, oh, just all this sadness that just like oozing out of him. And she's like, oh, thanks, I guess. You know, it's just like really awkward and super cringe. Which had this, there were like two of my really good friends that, you know, we would go out because we liked to go dancing. There were a couple times we went, or several times we went beyond that. And it's like, we always had this specific, like the specific groups that would like go our direction, right? And it's like, what I was noticing was, okay, and I don't know that it has anything to do with proportions, but it was just a connection that I made at the time. And it's like, okay, so Liz was very bottom heavy, and of course she was like taller than me, so, you know, just, but very bottom heavy. And she's super pretty, but inevitably, it was always like the guys that were interested in her were the black guys. So, okay, so that kind of seems like that makes sense with just like things that I've heard, right? So then it's like the other one, Angie, it's like she was very top heavy, and it always seemed like the ones that were interested in her were like the Hispanic guys. It's like, again, I don't know that these are like there's legitimate connections. This was just something that I was noticing, and it's like, I guess I was kind of more balanced, but, you know, between proportions, but inevitably, I always had the people, either they were super creepy or super sad and like mental health issues kind of a thing. It's like, the fuck is going on here? Right? So, you know, I feel like a big part of that, you know, okay, so I watched Jerry Wise thing the other day, and I think that's what it was. Okay, so I've watched a few things. This time there's Jerry Wise, Mel Robbins, and that Danish Bashir. I am probably botching that, and I apologize, but I tagged him in the other thing. But I feel like it was either Jerry or Mel, but I'm still leaning toward Jerry. Anyway, the thing that I was listening to was talking about how, you know, basically with the treatment that you get from the narcissistic family members, you tend to draw a lot of, you know, basically the energies that are looking for somewhere to go, right? Either the super sad ones or like the super toxic, icky ones, you know, like my ex-husband, right? So, yeah, so it's like, that makes more sense. Yeah, it's like the connection that I was making. It's like, I don't know if there's any kind of connection between these pieces, but these are the things that I am noticing, and it's like the people that talk to me. This is like almost always there's something sketchy going on. It's like, what the fuck is that all about, right? Well, it's that, you know, you basically not been taught to have boundaries. So because you don't have boundaries, other people, kind of wander in, and then, you're able to get access to your energy because you feel bad, because you've been told to be nice, or because you're too much for everybody and all this shit, right? So, yeah. Anyway, that does bring me, well, before I get to that point, I'm going to backtrack and talk about the other guy that had access to my energy that should not have had access to my energy. But there again, because I attracted the basically the projects, the ones that had lots of issues and you were looking for healing and all that crap, right? So one of this guy's friends, one of the house pastor's son's friends, I mean, he wasn't a bad looking dude, but somehow he ended up with my phone number at 1.2, and he had gone through a breakup with a long-term girlfriend or something. I don't remember the scenario and how the fuck I ended up out to breakfast with him. He picked me up on his motorcycle, and we went to breakfast, and we were having this conversation. It was like, just in all of all the places that I never should have been, right? This anywhere with this dude was a prime example of that. Which also, he might have contributed to the part where the rapey dude had access to my energy, because I also gave access to my energy to this guy, because he didn't seem like a bad guy. He hung out with some assholes, but he seemed somehow less shady than the house pastor's son, right? So end up I hopped for breakfast with this guy, and there were a couple things. The first was he made a big deal about pointing out the waitress and what kind of panties did I think she was wearing. It's like, what the fuck business of it is yours anyway? It's like, ew. But then, actually, that might feed into the other bit that I was, okay, anyway. Focus. So, so he, starting to get a little chilly, made the comment about what kind of panties did I think the waitress was wearing, and I was just kind of like, ew. And he proceeds to tell me this story of, he had this long-time girlfriend, and this thing happened where he blacked out, and when he woke up, he was at her house, and she and her mom were crying and terrified of him and wanted nothing to do with him, and he showed up with a gun that he didn't even remember having the gun and going there, but he woke up there, and they told him what had happened, or her mom told him what had happened, and threw him out of the house and told him not to come back, kind of a thing. But it was a long-time girlfriend. It's that's all sorts of red flags too, right? So it's we only went out the one time, and I still don't know why. I think, honestly, the biggest thing was, I think it was to teach me this point, was, some of those extra layers to where I chipped away at myself by allowing people to have access to me that never should have had access to me. And while we didn't go out again, I still let him send me text messages on occasion. And it was this really weird thing, because at one point, and this was way after undergrad, I met him my senior year in undergrad, and trying to figure out when they put the grocery store in down the street, because he worked with a construction company that apparently put that in, and he knew that I was from this town, so he randomly reached out to me, and I was just kind of like, do you still have my phone number? Why? Right? So, and like, I don't even remember what we talked about, but he was still kind of, you know, that, I'm wanting to say he still probably had the blackouts or something. I think he, like, even called me, but it was just like, what the fuck's your problem, girl? You know, it's like, these aren't people we should be associating with, and yet here we are. I think I want to say that his mom had passed away recently. And so, you know, I'm going to say I think a big part of it goes back to that point of how I've always known that at some level I'm supposed to be a healer, but I haven't completely figured out what that's supposed to look like yet. I think that is the biggest point of why certain types have been drawn to me like they have, and you know, especially like with that dude, you know, prime example, because his mom had passed away, and you know, so he was wanting to talk to somebody about that and whatever else, I guess. But it's like, how does this keep happening? What the fuck? So I do think I did block him after that call, or that time around. It was just like, yeah, this isn't really a good situation, and you know, I know he has blackouts and shows up places with guns and that he should never have been in. So it's like, no, not interested in that kind of chaos in my life. So yeah, he did eventually get blocked, but now I got a new number anyway. So, you know, basically fell off the planet as far as he is concerned, unless he ever comes across my stuff on here. Yeah. Anyway, so that does take me to the other point. So this morning, and even last night actually, okay, so, you know, I requested the help on releasing the junk that, you know, my energy was cluttered with yesterday, if you will, and having to cry my way through the video and all that fun stuff. And then I think about this video that, you know, dude had put on Instagram, and you know, just the energy, I'm telling you, that energy is just like, it's I don't know. Anyway, so the girl with the comment, right? I immediately have this scenario. I'm journaling and just kind of thinking through things, and I have this scenario that kind of pops into my head. And, you know, that's how a lot of things happen these days. Just random things pop into my head, and then it's like, okay, now we got to digest this. Now we got to process this and make sense of, you know, what it is. What is this trying to tell me? So, scenario that I see is the case in which, you know, everything goes in the most favorable direction, and me and dude end up together at some point down the line, right? So, scenario is, I've just met him, or like we've just become official or whatever, and he decides he wants to introduce me in his, you know, live stream to his community, right? His community of faithful followers and all this fun stuff. And no, stop, take a break or I'm gonna throw you out. Anyway, so oh boy, the neighbors are riding bikes up and down the driveway with their kids. So the dogs saw it because the glass door was open in the other room, so they went off. But anyway, so scenario is we're recently together, right? And he's wanting to introduce me to his community. And girl, with the comments in the comments, shows up and basically has shitty things to say about me, right? And this is where it gets kind of weird, because the thing that came up when I was, kind of shifting to defending myself, kind of a space, was calling her a succubus. And it's like, but that actually makes perfect sense. Okay. So see if I can maintain my thought process on this, right? So in the scenario, I call her a succubus and, go off about, like, how, so what, she could probably, momentarily provide some pleasure to this attractive guy who an extremely talented musician and all this stuff, right? It's like, so you can basically are capable of, potentially providing this, like, momentary pleasure, but, like, you have nothing of substance beyond that. It's like you have nothing to offer, and it's like, so I'm instantly running through all these things about, like, things that I have tried to destroy myself over in the past. Like, I talked about a few times when I was, I think it was my freshman year in high school, or going into sophomore year, my suicide attempt. One of the things that I did to try to push myself to go through with it was, I found myself in front of my bathroom mirror, and I was, like, looking at everything and just, like, picking apart every little thing that I could think of, my flaws or whatever, as a means of reminding myself that I shouldn't exist and trying to go through with ending it, right? So, and I've talked about this on here several times too, like, one of the biggest thing that happened in that experience, and I feel, I've always called it divine intervention, but even that has taken on a new meaning with the idea of this twin flame connection. And of course, in, like, the twin flame community, I think I've heard Natural Mystic talk about it before, where she said that, there's the divine feminine energy and the divine masculine energy, and when they come together in union, they create this third energy, which is, the God energy, right? So it's like this very pure love kind of thing, right? So with what I have learned on this journey, that makes perfect sense. It's like my capacity to feel this love feeling, I feel like is largely because of how I've been opening up, to this other aspect of myself, right? Because everybody has both the masculine and feminine energies within them. And I know a lot of people don't like that idea, but it's like, it has nothing to do with sexuality and gender or whatever, however those labels are appropriately assigned or whatever. It's literally just these aspects of ourselves. So, like, I've always talked about I've always had this tendency to over-identify with the feminine aspect of myself, right? Because I was conditioned to do so, right? I was conditioned to believe myself as less than my male associates in life, because that's what the church pushes. The whole patriarchal system pushes this point of women are somehow less than and supposed to be subservient and all this bullshit, right? So I tried, sorry, my throat did something weird. I tried for a long time to fit what they were telling me I had to fit. And what the twin flame connection has shown me was I was, like, flowing all over the place, right? Which is like, I've talked about the feminine as the flow and the masculine as the frame. So, right? So all these people were, like, coming to me and being drawn to my energy and wanting to latch on for the purpose of sucking the life out of me, right? Because that is what we are conditioned to do in this existence. So, I have this night, I'm like picking apart everything, and of course, you know, my teeth were a big thing that I always had a problem with, because to me it was the most obvious thing that people always seem to latch onto about what was a problem with me, right? So, okay, so when I was a baby, before my teeth, like, you know, before my teeth even came in, they say you're like born with all the teeth you're going to have. It's just a matter of time before they actually come out, right? So, as a baby, I run this really high fever. And I think that's why, you know, I kind of got the discoloring. So that was always an issue. And it's like, you know, my mom was trying to go out of her way to fix the things, get the things fixed for me, right? So they weren't a problem, right? Because I was getting made fun of all over the place. It's like, why do I have spots on my teeth, right? And the front ones, so I mean, this one still does. That one is fake. So, and okay, so this one, it was like this, but you can't really see it. It's got like the little spots and whatnot. It's got a veneer on it now, which apparently those don't last forever either. So I get this stupid thing put on my teeth in like middle school, I think, right? Middle school was like horrible for me with dentist stuff because, you know, my teeth were yellowish and people would make fun of me for that. And then I have spots, so I got made fun of for that too. And there was like one girl in particular when I was in 5th grade, stupid Leslie, which she didn't have any friends either. So it's like she was clearly just a miserable human trying to make me miserable as well. So she latches on to me one day because I have another friend in the class or something, and she's probably jealous of it because I don't think she had many friends ever. And she just looks at me and you know, at my teeth and is like, ew, that's disgusting. Don't you ever brush your teeth? That kind of thing. So it's like, So, you know, I've talked a lot on here as well about how my teeth have always been this thing where that was a big part of why I didn't want to talk to people. You know, I was trying to not talk to people, not use my voice. Of course, you know, my voice got squashed in its own right, but then there was this other issue that was kind of a big thing too. You know, and okay, so when I was with my last ex, the one that I married and shouldn't have, it had been like 10 years since I went to the dentist because I have an aversion to the dentist. And I've talked about that on here several times. The reason I have the aversion to the dentist, other than like all the dental work and whatnot, is like I was always there, right? Because my mom was trying to get this stuff fixed that was like a problem, right? So she takes me to this one appointment. I'm like in 8th grade, and it's a 10 o'clock appointment, 10 o'clock in the morning. So I get taken out of school. You know, I still went to school, but I get taken out of school to go to this dentist appointment. And, you know, I go back and get the shot. He numps me up because I had like a cavity or something that had to be filled, or I don't know what he was doing. Something like that. And he gives me the shot and disappears. And I think he forgot I was there, honestly. When he came back to finally do what what I was there for him to do, the numbness was wearing off. And, you know, of course he says, you know, raise your hand if you can feel this, and I'll give you another shot, and, you know, we'll come back to it. And it's like, when he started it up, it's like I felt everything. And I would not raise my hand at all because I did not want him to stop, because I thought if he stopped, then he'd just disappear again. And it's like, I've already spent so much time here and I don't want to spend any more time here, right? So it's like this whole miserable day at the dentist, and I felt everything. Like he was cutting and drilling and all this bullshit. And it's like, I felt it all. So I have a massive aversion to the dentist. Now, I had a tooth that was kind of bothering me. And at this point, okay, there's one dentist that I trust. And I trust him because it is somebody that I went to school with. My mom used to babysit him. His brother was one of my bullies, to be honest. He was always one of the nicest guys. Like, I trusted him across the board and always have, because he's just a genuinely nice person. His brother's a shithead, but he was like a genuinely nice person, and like in all the like getting made fun of and all that stuff, it's like he was not somebody that ever contributed to it, so I've always had a massive amount of respect for him. And he's literally the only person I will trust to do any kind of dental work, right? So since I had a tooth that was kind of bothering me, it'd been like 10 years since I'd went to the dentist. It's like, oh, I really don't want to go. But yeah, and the interesting thing that I noticed was, it's like, all right, my mouth hurts, right? So in the past, I just like start like going crazy with the flossing and the brushing like several times and everything to take care of it as much as possible, right? And it's like, by the time I got there wasn't any problems. And he said, for somebody that hasn't been to the dentist in 10 years, your teeth look really good. It's like, cool. I will take it. And the other thing was, he said, for somebody in their mid-30s, you've had a lot of work done. It's like, I know. That's not okay. It's like, I got all sorts of stuff, right? And this one had a cap on it. That one is without a cap. Christmas Eve 2023. That bad boy popped off. I was like, fuck. I want to go to the dentist. It's like, I don't know if my insurance would cover anything on it anyway. So it's like, I just had this aversion to it, right? But then my mom mentioned that they have stuff at like CVS that you can get and like put it on there for temporary, but you still need to go back in and have it checked out and taken care of. So I got the stuff, put it back on. It was on for like a month and a half, and then it popped off again. It has not been on since. I'm not worried about putting on it since. What I have noticed is, even though it looks like shit, and it's very rough and feels damaged, right? This thing was covered by a cap for like 20 years, right? And yet it still functions. It doesn't hurt very much. It's like, I feel like a lot of the work that I had done might not have even been necessary, right? So it's like, yeah, it looks like shit. It feels gross. It's not my favorite thing. But obviously it doesn't bother me so much that I'm not talking about it here. Like, I'm not afraid of that anymore. When I started out, I was kind of afraid of that. And it's like, it's like, I'm going to be judged for this shit. It's like, my birthday, 2024, July 9th, 2024. Oh, no, day before, July 8th. So this one broke. And I think the biggest part of the purpose of that breaking was because everything in me had this massive inclination to want to shut down, right? Because that was always my safety mechanism for myself, to protect myself was just shut down. Turn within, disappear to the outside world, stop talking to people, whatever, just, stop, disappear. And I did a video that day, and I think I cried through the video that day because my tooth broke. And I was like, this fucking sucks. But at the same time, I feel like this is the universe saying, what are you going to do now? Are you going to keep going? You've already come a long way on this whole journey with doing the hard things. And like when the cap popped off of that, I had just started the YouTube thing, right? So I was doing YouTube, started November 11th, and by Christmas Eve, I had gotten to the point where I needed to take a break from it. But that, Christmas Eve was where the cap fell off the first time. Like I said, I got stuff to put on it and kind of resolved it for a little bit, but then after a few weeks it was gone again. So it's like, you gonna quit? It's like, I tell you what, I have had a whole lot of quit in my lifetime, and that's been like one of the hardest things to overcome and move beyond, was just that tendency to always want to quit. And so then when that tooth broke, it was the same thing. You gonna quit? You gonna keep going, or you gonna quit again? Because you just have that tendency to just always shut down, right? And just stop doing the things because it got hard or painful or scary or whatever, and just disappear back into the bubble and leave me the fuck alone, right? But I didn't quit, even though I might have wanted to, right? So anyway, going back to the bit in high school, right? I was looking for everything to just like completely tear myself apart, right? And I might have finished the story. I don't think I did. As I was literally just picking myself apart, it was like, all I can say was divine intervention, because it was like there was like a hand that lifted my chin and made me look myself in the eyes. And the message that came through was, you are far more beautiful than you will ever believe. And, it's just like, I just like crumbled. And like, I was already crying over everything and, beating myself in the head with my hairbrush, because that was the thing that I did a lot. I didn't cut myself because that was obvious. So my thing was, I would just like start beating myself in the head with my hairbrush, because prove it, right? So yeah, like I said, divine intervention, without a doubt. And now that I've, kind of been navigating my existence with this twin flame thing, I'm kind of thinking there's more to that point. And, okay, I talked about, we all have the masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves, right? So, going back to this point, this is the Ankh, the key of life, right? And I remember looking at it when I was going to church all the time and, thinking that, it was one of those things that was taken from the church. It's like, that's not right. This is way older than the fucking cross, man. And I remember being curious as to what the difference was and everything. And so, it goes back to Egypt and whatnot. And I think the thing that struck me the most, because of course, key of life, and I got one over there too. It speaks to unifying the masculine and feminine aspects. It's bringing the feminine in, which is, the top part, which represents the womb, and the, the bottom part, which, masculine, so obviously. But then the middle part is building a bridge between the two pieces, right? So bringing the top, or the feminine down and the masculine up kind of thing to meet in the middle, which is like twin flame stuff. So I've talked a bunch about how the feminine twin rules over the upper chakras and the masculine twin rules over the lower chakras, right? So masculine rules over root, sacral, and solar plexus, and then the feminine rules over throat, third eye, and crown. And, I heard somebody say a while back that the feminine protects the masculine in the spiritual, or at the spiritual level. It's like, of course, you hear a lot about, like, the masculine aspect supposed to be protective and everything, but at a physical level. But then it's like this other thing is still also the case, right? So it's building the bridge between the two aspects of yourself, right? So whereas I always over-identified with the feminine aspect of myself and kind of flowing through everything and feeling like I was supposed to help everybody. And, you know, once the twin flame stuff came in and I was given these messages that I needed to start having boundaries and protecting my boundaries and protecting my energy, what I realized was, you know, it's like I've always had this ability. I've just been conditioned to think that I'm not supposed to do anything with that. You know, and that goes back to the same idea of, you know, how there are a lot of distorted masculine energies out of there that want to make fun of angry women or the anger, the emotions, the okay, basically standing up for what's right and speaking out against what's wrong, right? So like the whole, like, if you want to just look at the damn country, abusing people, like the system that is in place literally exists for the sake of keeping distorted masculine energies comfortable so they don't have to step up and change. Where the feminine comes in, which is like one of the most important keys, because this is like, you know, upper chakra stuff, bringing in, you know, protecting the spiritual side of things. You know, the distorted masculine does not want the, you know, the doesn't want to be held accountable, doesn't want to have to change. It wants to be able to exist in its toxicity and stay there and drag everybody else down into it, right? So I've talked a lot about my grandfather on here, and like he's a prime example of the distorted masculine energy, because everybody had to cater to his bullshit, had to keep his illusion alive. And it's like, I was the biggest one in this family that got hurt by what he was doing, and everybody else went along with him and, you know, pushing me to fall in line and to follow his illusion, by basically assaulting me on energetically, emotionally, all these things, with how I was a problem. I was too much. You know, I had to be less to make other people comfortable, right? So it's like, because I could see the wound that he was existing from, and the wound that, you know, my parents exist from. I can see the wound. And for a long time, I felt like I had to fix it. But what I was, you know, once I started setting boundaries, what I realized was, you can't fix everything for everybody. Some people want to stay in their toxicity, and that is not on you to fix them or change them or anything. It's just let them be, move on. You know, the idea of kicking the sand off of your shoes and, you know, moving along because they don't want you there. Right? So yeah. So then the masculine rules over the physical sphere, right? It's about the framework, right? So like that's the biggest thing, like with the twin flame connection, was realizing that I didn't have, like, I was just flowing everywhere, but there was like nothing to like keep me in place, nothing to keep me together. I was just scattered. And okay, go back to my yin yang, because that's the one that started it right there. Okay, so that yin yang caught my attention. I got it on Etsy, LunaWoodArts, I think. And it's like my phone was still all grayed out one morning because I had it in sleep mode, and I see this thing pop up, and it looks like that, but of course in the grayscale. And I'm just looking at it, and it's like, okay, so I've talked a lot about, you know, even feeling like that connection with Tyler, like I called him my drumline counterpart, you know, and it's like what I know, or what the connection that I made with him was, it's like, you know, it's like, okay, for a long time I was afraid of reaching out to him, even though I felt like I was supposed to, because I was afraid my sadness would, you know, infect his life. And I could not bring myself to be okay with my sadness oozing into somebody else's space. So I avoided him, right? But then this, goes to show me that, we all carry both aspects within us, right? There's the light and the dark and the light, right? So I always thought he was like the light because he just, like, everybody loved him. He was just like a great person. He didn't talk shit about people. I mean, he was going to give you hell about stuff, but he wasn't going to do it for the sake of being mean, right? And what I realized, after he died, it's like, he still made decisions that got him there. And I think it was like the liver and kidneys shut down, I think due to like drinking a massive amount for a lot of years because he was 34, right? But I remember hearing about him drinking with his friends in like middle school and high school. But it's like it never, it's just, everybody had him on a pedestal. So it's just kind of, but then, thinking it's like he already had the dark aspect within him and he probably was not okay with that either. So it's like, in all the times that I felt like I was supposed to reach out and didn't, it's like, what if I could have been the friend that he needed to, provide the support on that end, right? So, to allow it to be okay to have the darkness in yourself, even though everything else looks like you're supposed to be light and happy and all these good things and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, we all carry the shadow and the light. We all do. We all carry the masculine and the feminine. We all have, all the various levels of that you want to think about. It's like all the things used to keep people polarized and separated into duality. It's like we all have both aspects of them. So like this whole thing is just building the bridge within ourselves to bring the upper chakras and, spirit down to the physical space, right? And the physical building it up so it is safe for the, for the feminine to come down, for the spirit side to come back down, right? Which is, largely why, there's been so many groups throughout history that were led by women, and why the patriarchal churches or patriarchal religions had to squash that. Because the patriarchal religions are the very antichrist that, they want to scream about and make everybody afraid of, right? It's like, that's literally it, because they don't actually have spirit. They don't have the connection that they're able to bring it down, because they're trying to destroy the ability to build the bridge. They're trying to demonize it and try to keep everything in the separation. But anyway, that wasn't the point of that. The point of that was going back to this yin yang. So I see it this one morning, and the white being the border just really stood out to me. And then it gave me the sense of, I've always felt like I didn't have any choice but just to like flow everywhere and to, allow my energy to be latched onto by other people, and like I didn't have any choice in that, right? Because I didn't have the boundary, right? But then this demonstrated to me that morning when I looked at it, and it just hit me just right. And it's like, that's always been there. I've always had the ability to do that, to provide the framework, the safety for myself to, do things. So like once the twin flame thing came up, then it's like, wait, there's a boundary, so then I started feeling the boundary and, feeling into the safety and whatnot, and allowing so he's been building, this amazing career for himself, right? Working in the physical, doing the things. Meanwhile, it's like I got nothing to show for it, because I got all this weird shit going on and I can't make sense of any of it, because, there's nothing solid and tangible that, you know, I can make sense for anybody else that's going to ask me about things. Which is kind of, I guess, why I got to lean into the Delulu, because spirit is why I'm here, you know, helping to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the physical, right? So I can't speak for him. I don't know him. I can just speak to what I have experienced of his energy in the online space. And I think the biggest thing, like, okay, so like the church has also like wanted everybody to stay terrified of the idea of this new age stuff, right? And it's like, we are in the new age, right? Like, I'm currently fucking talking to my phone, right? And I'm going to put this online, so like people that I may never ever meet will have access to this thing, right? So like, and then that's been the case for like everything I've done so far. It's like, there's been a few videos. Oh, I had something pop up the other day that said I had like 1,000 views on all of my videos at this point. It's like all together. It's like, what? It's like, that just seems kind of like a weird thing. And like my immediate reaction is, but did they watch it all the way through? Does it count if they don't? So, you know, trying to make sense of like that. But anyways, like, this is why. Especially, you know, for those that, you know, okay, you know how the church looks down on women, and raises up those women that are locked into this the distortion of the duality, and basically enabling the toxic masculine energy to continue not having to step up and do the work, right? So there's this male loneliness epidemic because they don't think they should have to do the work to, you know, become worthwhile of having decent relationships. It's like, that's literally what they're saying is, I shouldn't have to do this, and yet there's nobody that would be interested in me. Yeah, because your toxic ass doesn't want to do anything to heal. No, nobody does want to do anything with that. Nobody wants to enable your ass for your bad behavior anymore. We're done. Which again is why the church has a problem with that, right? Because, you know, supposed to be making babies. That's like our sole purpose, right? It's like, no. Which goes back to that the baby shower yesterday, right? So I went to this baby shower, and it's like, I felt very disconnected from the whole thing. And it's like, I get that there are, you know, like my one cousin's daughter and her wife that were there with their baby, and, you know, they were obviously, you know, over the moon with their little baby and how happy they were together and all this stuff. It's like, I get that. There are people that's their big goal in life, but it's like, knowing that most of them come from the church type scenario, how much of them are doing these things and participating in this existence just because it's what they've been told that they are supposed to. You know, I'm getting a lot of weird looks from, you know, okay, my aunt and my mom especially, like with my cousin's baby, I'm just not interested. And the biggest thing, I've talked about that a lot too, is I'm confident that is my grandfather reincarnated, right? And I'm happy for my cousin and her husband, but I don't have any interest in, you know, being involved with the family latching on to this new baby, this new life that, you know, we're going to suck the life out of it kind of a thing. It's like, that, of course they don't have that. They don't have that mindset that that's what they're doing, but that's basically what they're doing. Luckily, my cousin, I think, is more inclined to have boundaries with the family than, you know, any of the aunts or my grandma are. You know, my grandma, I think, wants to basically have a shrine to this baby in her house. Like, she doesn't have any other great-grandchildren, you know, like Gracie, the one that just moved to Oklahoma. You know, it's like she doesn't exist anymore because my brother is dead to the family. It's like, and they won't say as much, but that's kind of how they're treating it. But anyway, like, I get dirty looks because I'm not just over the moon for this baby. Yay, there's a new baby in the family. No. This is a toxic family. I'm sorry that, you know, he's here to be thrived on and to have the life sucked out of him. On the other end, karmically speaking, yeah, So, I mean, my grandfather... Sorry, the neighbors had the audacity to shut a door. So everybody went nuts. But anyway, it's like that was the biggest thing. It's just like, I'm sure a lot of them are happy. But I know there was one chick that was running around that, like, she had a couple kids there, and the thing that's coming to mind is the idea that her daughter is going to be a lot more work for her than she's probably okay with. So it's kind of like more like a wild child than I was, because I was always pretty subdued. But as far as like doing the things and existing in the space that pisses people off, yeah, I mean, so it's like, how many of those people there, I mean, like the idea of the baby shower too. Yeah, it's helpful to be able to have people come together and celebrate, I guess, you know, and to get the things to help you with the baby and all that stuff. But it's like, how much of this is just because this is conditioned, or how you've been conditioned, and, you know, this is what you're supposed to do, so here you are doing it. It's like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. But anyway, it's like, you know, I'll go back to that point of when I was in high school and said I did not want kids if I could not heal the stuff that, you know, my mom was basically giving me to have to heal from, because she chose not to do her healing work. The stuff that was automatically dumped on me to deal with because she wouldn't face her own shadow, you know, her own demons and all that stuff, right? So it's like all the ways that her trying to keep my grandfather's illusion alive ended up just sucking the life out of me. So, yeah, okay, so there was more to the earlier point. Anyway, so in this twin flame scenario thing, the girl comes on to the space and, like, is trying to tear me apart for me, because I'm not perfect by any means, and I really don't give a shit about being perfect. And it's like, you know, like going back to like the teeth and everything, it's like, it took me so long to come to terms with it, right? So it's like, this is literally my entire life. I mean, oh, well, 5th grade on anyway. You know, so my cousin was there when I was 8 to, you know, make it so I like nobody would hear me, right? So, you know, I lost my voice in that way. And then in 5th grade, I was trying, I mean, I was kind of a shit. And because I've been made fun of so much of my life, right? So it's like, hurt people. And I wasn't very nice back in those days. But then this girl comes around and, you know, she starts making fun of me because of my teeth. Because, hey, cool, another thing to get made fun of, right? So another reason that I don't want to speak, smile, or anything else like that, right? And, you know, like my ex-husband. That was another one. You know, no, he's like way later in life. You know, there were all these little things along the way where, you know, those points were continued to be drilled into my head. But then when I was with my ex, you know, he would flat out tell me that I needed to not smile so much because he could see my teeth and he didn't like that. It's like, fuck you, douchebag. Man, it's like, how the fuck did I end up in that situation, right? All this bad conditioning, right? So anyway, going back to the scenario with this chick and this vision that randomly came to me, and, you know, she's like trying to cut me down because, you know, I mean, what she have to offer? That she could play with this dinghy and be happy, right? She could maybe even have a baby or two, and, you know, all that kind of crap. It's like, so I see myself just going off, but like the first thing was immediately that succubus. It's like, It's like, ooh, there's something there. And I've spent some time with that today. So before then, you know, like the succubus, and then like running through this list of things, and like, you know, pointing out all the things that have been counted as flaws or imperfections about me, the things that are a problem for like so many people in my life. It's like, I've already come to terms with all this shit. It's like, this is what it is, y'all. You know, and I've talked to like this one, I'll probably never get that fixed unless like something happens up here. If one of the front ones breaks or something, then I'll probably go get it fixed. But like otherwise, it's like, it's taken me so long to come to terms with that doesn't make me a shitty person because I have a broken tooth, right? And it's like, you know, my entire existence is like, everything about me is a problem. Why? You know, and why the fuck do I exist if everything about me is a fucking problem, right? So this was like the big thing that, or big problem that I had with God for a long time was, you created me all like horribly flawed, and it's a problem for everybody. Why? You know, so then you know, my shift was hating God. And there's a whole lot of levels to that. Because that goes back to, we are all aspects of the divine. We are all divine reference points, right? Like the stories that we have are basically feeding into the collective unconscious or collective consciousness to, as this these things lead to this kind of situation, right? And you know, so these things have been problematic. How can we fix them, kind of a thing? And guess what? You know, like the fact that my teeth might not be pretty, that doesn't change the fact that I can see a lot of issues in the world around me, and I'm not okay with them, right? But anyway, like that point of the succubus thing, it was like, oh, I gotta spend some time with that. And you know, I did, and it makes perfect sense. It's like, so the story that I remember reading about, I mean, fucking Google it. It's, you know, the succubus wants to have intercourse with the sleeping male, and sucks his life force out of him, right? She wants to be latched onto his energy so she doesn't have to, do the work. Become better. Exist. Do the healing thing is the biggest part. But it's like, oh, and that makes like so much sense for like music even, because like music is this thing, like, okay, I've always had this sort of insight in the back of my head that the changes that we need to see in the world are coming through music, right? So, you know, and like the whole twin flame connection, all this stuff is like, I'm learning so much because of what I'm learning from music, what I'm seeing, different, you know, like different people across, you know, genres coming together to create something different together, and you know how much that changes. It's like the healing that needs to happen was always meant to come through music, right? And I've talked a lot about how like metal music, especially as far as we've all been shoved into our darkness, right? And the world conditioning us to believe that we're going to hell for some kind of music that we want to listen to. That's bullshit. But in the time of being conditioned into believing that, that was a means of forcing us to go through hell, right? And like, you know, I've talked many times, like the biggest thing like about hell, I don't think hell is somewhere you go when you die. It is not something that exists as we've been told that it exists. But it's the fact that we come here to this planet and we completely forget everything about who we are, about, you know, being connected to everybody else around us in the world, you know, and even those on the other side of the fucking world, we're still connected to those, you know, we have the shared humanity and all this stuff. But derailed. So we forget who we are and what we're here to do. And then we get conditioned to believe these things that aren't right, and to, basically believe in this God that doesn't exist outside of a book. I mean, at least it doesn't appear to, because I don't think that the people that, want to use that book to beat other people over the head, have any good stories about experiences of God themselves, right? That's like spirituality being devoid like the religion being devoid of the spirituality aspect, right? So religion minus the upper chakras, because they've tried to divorce the feminine. They Holy Ghosted the feminine, right? I've said that many times. They turned it into the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. But that's never what it was. It was always this, building the bridge, the masculine and feminine, bringing the two together, building the bridge within yourself, and becoming a full person and divine being, and not looking for something outside of yourself to fix everything. Because nothing can fix what you won't fix in yourself. Because if you will not do the work yourself, nothing's going to change, right? So all you can do is heal yourself, right? So, going back to the succubus thing, I was thinking when I was skating today that, I've seen pictures of, singers with bras and panties hanging off of their microphone or whatever. It's like, ew. But it's like, that's the same idea. It's like, so for the distorted masculine existing in the physical space of, this earth, right? So their musicians are connected to the flow state at some level, like the songs that like really have an impact because they were able to tap into the flow state, which is allowing the universe to express through you, right? I watched something earlier that had a Gaia thing talking about channeling. It says musicians, writers, all these people are channelers. They already are, because it's allowing, the flow state, allowing the universe to flow through you to share something with the world. And that too, we're here to join forces and do things together to make a better existence for everybody. And yet the distortion wants to keep everybody locked into the distortion, because you need something outside of yourself to save you. You are threatened with hell if you don't believe what the church is spewing at you, all for some happy mumbo jumbo in the sky that you have no evidence of. It's like, nah. There's something wrong there. There's a whole lot wrong there, right? So it makes it okay to abuse people who aren't like you, and to coerce people who are on the verge of falling out of line, which is, why my family's always had a problem with me, and why even the ones that weren't actively doing the emotional abuse themselves were still doing the emotional abuse, because they were still coming from the place of, you're not acting like you're supposed to. You need to fall in line, right? But anyway, going back to the succubus thing. So like for those in music that, they might be tapped into the flow state a little bit for the music pieces, but then they get completely taken away and separated from the spiritual side of things, because there's this temptation with the lower, the distortion, or the distorted feminine, that's willing to throw herself at the beautiful, talented male musicians, because she could fuck him and could maybe give him babies, but otherwise that's all she has to offer. So it's like, without doing the work and being locked into the distortion, that's the succubus thing, right? That's trying to keep somebody else bound to the distortion, right? It's this, it's not a literal asleep thing. It's, like literally physically asleep. It's this energetically, spiritually asleep thing where, like, it's like, so basically, okay, so my ex, okay, and I'm not going to discount myself from that, because I've talked about my own toxic, me and my toxicity was what allowed me to get into the connection with my ex and his toxicity, right? So, now when I've talked about the dream where the guys in the band, there were 4 of the 5 were on stools behind this couch that my ex and I were sitting on, and I was so angry at my ex, and like that was the biggest thing that I was like noticing, and it's like I couldn't get beyond the anger, but I was really puzzled at why this group of guys was there with me. And then once I was able to go back into the dream, because I went back into it like 4 times, like the very first time when I had the dream, I was puzzled at how they were there. The next time, it's like I was aware that my twin flame was talking to me, but it's like he was talking to these other guys in the existing space that he was already in, but he was also talking to me enough to say, if you need my help, let me know. My dad is driving across the yard, so, okay, anyway, we're going to have to wrap this up, but, they're going to go off. And initially, I said that I felt like it was something I had to do on my own, right? But then I realized that, hey, he said, if you need my help, let me know. That means being open to help is an okay option, right? And I've talked about how, when the guy at the celebration of life thing for the family friend was making me, there was a guy there with his wife, and, that were old friends of my parents, and this other couple, and the husband came over to the other side of the tent simply because the sun was on him, beating down on him, and it was hot. It was like June, so it's like 90 degrees outside anyway without the sun beating on him. So he comes over to the other side of the tent, and just him standing there started to make me uncomfortable. It's like, I don't know what this is, but I don't like it. And so it's like, wait a second. In the dream, he said, if I need his help, let me know. Right? So I just kind of threw out there, hey, he's making me uncomfortable, and I don't like it. Can we make him go away? And like within 30 seconds, he went back over to the other side of the table and sat down, with his wife. And like within a couple minutes, he was looking really uncomfortable, and he looks at his wife and says, we need to leave. And then we're gone. It's like, huh. But it was like an immediate, like a call to action. And all I did was ask help of this, this twin flame connection that, basically divine counterpart. The other, it's the bridged. I've unified the 2 aspects of myself, so, I'm able to, just say, hey, help. And then helps, and of course, I've talked about it, like the day that I had the song, Take My Breath Away by Berlin, that was just playing in my head over and over again. It's like, I was listening to it over and over again, and it just all at once hit me. It's like, God is love, love is God, love is all there is. It's like everything, it's like even the painful aspects of my story have been what has contributed to getting me to where I am now. And being on this, in this twin flame connection where, it's like I've realized there's somebody in existence that's, there's actually a person out there that is connected to me, which there again, essentially we're all active incarnations of spirit in this plane, right? But we're all here to do something different. We all are here to build bridges in different spaces, right? But it's like the fabric of the whole thing. Oh, and going back to the if you need my help, let me know. Oh, today the connection was my ex was an incubus, right? Because that's the masculine or aspect, that or masculine demon that attaches to the female, right? And when I was just aware of my anger, that was the big thing on why. So once I was like, hey, he can help. It's like the next time, that I went into it, after the help, once I'd asked for help, it's like it shifted even further, and it's like I was vaguely aware that my ex was even there at all, but it was like more of this dreamy space of me and the twin flame were having this connection, but it was like through a fog. But for today's purposes, the realization that my ex in that scenario, it's like I knew he wasn't supposed to be there, and that was part of the anger. But it's like the whole reason he wasn't supposed to be there was he was basically the incubus, right? And attached to me. But then, yeah, like the succubus and, like just all the, I think there's been a lot of girls throughout history that have had their wanting to throw their panties or their bras or whatever at the musicians to get noticed and basically have their attention. But essentially it's not the connection that gives life, which is the twin flame, the building the bridge connection. It's giving demons access to your energy, which not literal demons, but that same demonic energy, that it's the same purpose that sucks the life out of you. So like, also I was thinking about like with my grandfather was an incubus for my grandmother, but also my grandmother was in turn to also a succubus for my grandfather, right? So it's like they both had really bad energy and they came together and were procreating, but not in a good way, so they have these kids, but they grow up in this abusive system, and yet they're taught that it's normal, right? So, and, like look at the whole Christian nationalist thing right now is they're trying to push the idea that it's normal to abuse your children. It's not normal to abuse your children, y'all. And if you're okay with that, that says more about you and the space that you're existing in than it says of anything else. But ultimately, it's to continue creating the sense of not being safe because you're not safe, right? So it's like if you are not safe for others, you are also, whatever you put out into the world is what you get back, right? So anyway, it is over an hour and 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and I will continue this on another day, just because it's already kind of long. But anyway, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.